old 440 out of Dodge. And I'm trying to figure out how to get this torque converter off because this motor is seized. So there's the fun stuff. And this one bolt, I got all the others. This one bolt right here is pretty sticky. I will say this, all the bolts come out of this motor, even the frost plugs, or the drain plugs to the block, pop right out. No issue. Everything's good like that. I do have these valves that are stuck. I don't know, I'm kind of curious to see what we see inside here. We're going to know in the next couple hours what this looks like. But the old car, I got it up on the lift for the first time. It's pretty darn good. And if you don't know the history on the car and you haven't seen the other videos, I've got a playlist on this thing. Go check it out. It's pretty neat piece. Pretty neat history on this car. It's sat outside. It's sat outside since '84. And I mean, up here in Canada, they rust. But this car wasn't driven in the winters. Look at the old frame rail and everything. I mean, there's not even swelling. A lot of times where you see it between the layers. The front floor up here has one little spot. So that little section I'll have to change. That's from the windshield leaking. And the back window has toasted the trunk floor. I do have to do the trunk floor. And the drop downs, I'll have to do the whole deal. And that looks like that probably leaked from the time it was new. But that we can deal with. We can get the parts. Any B-body Mopar will work. This car is tough to get parts for. There's not a lot of Coronet stuff, but this underneath B-body stuff is not too bad. And then the old 440 original motor, never been out of the car until now. So that's another interesting little piece, and we'll get after it. The old 727 automatic, that's always been there. From what I understand, the differential was changed on it a few times. I guess it had a little tendency to break horsing on it. But that's what I'm told from the history of the car. And other than that, pretty solid old hot rod. Very savable car. So let's go find out what the hell's going on with this motor. I popped the world's heaviest intake manifold off. Everything looks pretty good in there. Don't see big signs of water, rust, nothing. Some mice. But now, go to the exhaust side. It's a different story. Look at all the rust. Those are your two really stuck valves. You see all the rust. All of them, both sides of the engine have some. Well, that's just from sitting with no exhaust on the thing forever and ever and ever. The moisture's crawled up through. And that's how it goes. I've heard of this. I haven't actually run across this very much, but so depends how deep the damage goes. These two center cylinders here are just loaded. It almost looks like maybe critters dragged some stuff up in there. Might have even made the problem worse. I don't know what in the world is up in there. So look at that back one. So we'll see. We may end up having to get pretty extensive on a rebuild. We'll know here shortly. Well, the old engine, I broke it down here quite a bit. It doesn't look too bad inside. There is somewhere, you can see a little age on those lifters. See, there's slightly concave underneath. So we will probably put a cam in it. I'll speak to the owner. See what we're gonna do about that. And we're gonna pull these heads off now. We're gonna see what we got. See how good or bad it is. See if we wanna cry or get real happy. Real shortly when we're home. All you guys that are easily offended by power wrenches, I don't care. I'm old. I don't want to sit here cranking on the hand wrench all day. I look like I'm giving everybody the finger here. It's not necessarily so. This finger, I think I'm busted the knuckle, and it's not worth too much. So when I'm pointing at stuff, I'm not giving anything the finger. I'm just pointing with the wrong finger. So this is the side of the stuck valves. The real bad stuck valves. Mind you, the other side looks worse in the port, but start with this side. I've kind of been keeping track with pictures of where all these factory plug wire holders go and everything else. Just put everything back the way it should be if we use stock manifolds. Again, we're going to get this part, we're going to talk to the customer. We're going to see what the game plan is. I'm probably going to have to, nope. Oh. That is not what I expected to see. Well. Might be a good thing it didn't start. I have to show you this. Ain't that something? That's not anything that just happened either. The old metal is all rusty there. This valve is broken here. Maybe that's why it was parked. Although I don't see any sign of it ever been run like that. There's nothing beat up. I don't know if they stuck and broke trying to turn it over, but then there is all of this that looks aged. I really don't know. Anyway, I guess we have our answer. I'll be damned. I'll pull the other one off, see what that looks like. Trusty bolt box. My floor is a disaster. Every time we do something like this, a rust, pile of rust, bits of Presto. I get done this little deal, I'll clean everything up, get some floor dry. Another one. Very interesting. This, I didn't try and turn it with a starter. I tried to turn it with a wrench. don't know how this here works. Good news is I don't think the cylinders are very, very, very bad. I'm gonna just grab a wrench here and see if I can turn it now. This is a very interesting problem. Still pretty sticky. I'll have to clean her up and drag the ball home through it. Just through the top here. I do that oftentimes on these. See if I can get them turning. It'd be much nicer to pull the engine apart. I'm going to pull it all apart anyway, but it's a hell of a lot nicer if I can turn it, you know, so you don't have to worry so much about marking your crank with rod bolts and whatnot. So I'm going to definitely do a little work here. Try and get this rotating. It sure looks like I can. It's really not too bad. Let's probably run down and get some more. Well, actually, I do have some more juice here. I'll pour some juice in them holes, see if they'll work down through. Work by the ring. I'll get this rusty stuff off. But see, the cylinder wall itself is not horrible by any means. So I think it's conceivable that I can turn it. This one is probably the worst. It doesn't feel like it's miles deep. Really overall not too bad. There is some ring ridge. I mean, probably the smart money would be to bore it anyway. But we'll see what the budget is, see what they want to do. Go from there. The old timing chain is very worn. Pretty interesting day on the 440. Saw some stuff today that I really haven't seen before. Weird stuff. I showed you the valves when I pulled the heads off. Even more weird than that, I was watching Nick's garage today. He's tearing down a 440. He finds the same thing. He says he's never seen that before, and he's done a lot of 440s. It was the exact same deal. Valve laying in there. Nothing's been hurt, so you know it hasn't rotated with that broken off piece of valve. Obviously, we have no head damage, we have no piston damage, cylinder wall damage. You'd see all kinds of shit if it if it rolled over with that piece in there. So very strange how that was. And then the engine was seized, they couldn't turn it. I just assumed, the pistons were stuck in the bores around the rings. The reason it won't turn is the wrist pin is seized, and I mean seized. Not just a little bit. I can't move them. I can move them with a pry bar, trying to get them out. I undid the rod caps, and I figured I'd have to pop the bolts down through, pull all the rod caps off, and then pull the crank out was my original idea. Well, I popped the nuts loose, and then when they were backed off, I gave them a little shot with a hammer to knock them loose, so I could get the caps off and drive the bolts out so they didn't mark the crank coming out. And the piston moved, first one. And anyway, every one I did, just you could almost push them out with your thumb. Now the rings are stuck. Everything's free. It was not stuck at all on the bore. I dragged the ball home through the bores. The bores look pretty good. They're definitely got some wear. And these pistons are scrapped. There's no way I'm going to loosen this up. I could maybe press the pins out, maybe hone the bore of the piston. It's more hours than it's worth to pay somebody to do that for the price of new pistons. So smart money is just buy new pistons. if you're going to put new pistons, it should have a new bore, because right now it would probably have 8-9 thousandths of an inch of wall clearance by the time it was honed, you know, decent. And I don't see doing that with the cost of pulling this out and the cost of new pistons and everything else. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If those pistons were good, I wanted to do a cheapy rebuild. I've done them before. I could throw a set of rings in. It'd probably be all right. You might hear a little bit of piston on cold start, but that would be the worst you'd get out of that. And even that would be kind of questionable, because it's such a long skirt. I think it would seal fine with new rings, you know. But anyway, interesting day. So we'll figure out what the hell we're going to do with it. I'm thinking smart money is bore it. Crank looks beautiful. The cam is usable. I'd rather put a roller setup in it, but whatever. We'll see how that turns out. I kept track of lifters and everything, so I can use it if I need to. But crank is gorgeous. Block is really very, very nice for something this age. It just, if I bore at 30, it's new again. All the bearings look perfect, so I don't think it needs a line hone or anything. And needs a set of pistons for sure, and a set of rings and bearings and gaskets. You know, pretty basic stuff. So I think we'll be able to build a motor out of it easy. And then I got the brake pedal loosened up on the car because that was seized. I'm gonna do that. The windows are actually stuck. I'll figure I'm gonna look at those tomorrow, see what I need for that. I'll make a list of parts. I'll start getting everything ordered. So I'll order all my engine parts. We'll kind of concentrate on that, kick the car out. And then when the engine's done, we'll bring the car in. I'll put trunk floor in it, a new fuel tank, and maybe that filler piece by the back window. And then figure out what I'm doing with that lower rear quarter section, and try and get that try and figure out how to match this paint and make it look antique. I'll have to do some spray outs and see there, but anyway, job's going, so we'll get our parts and we'll finish her up.